Hey everyone, you're about to hear funny, interesting, and creepy stories, the kind that make you laugh and feel uneasy at the same time. Let's go. The first story goes like this. Highly embarrassing moment with my neighbor this morning. This morning, I was taking out the trash, in my sweatpants and an old stretched out t-shirt that says boobs. It was a gag gift from friends. I swear I don't wear it outside normally, usually. I open the building door and boom, my hot neighbor from the 5th floor is standing right there, waiting for the elevator. First eye contact in like 6 months. She smiles politely. I panic smile back way too wide. Then I realize my shoelace is untied. I bend down super fast to tie it and rip the loudest, longest fart of my entire life. Like cartoon level, echoing in the stairwell, brrrrap! Dead silence. I slowly stand up, face burning, pretending it didn't happen. She's staring at the floor, lips pressed together so hard they're white, clearly trying not to laugh/cry/die. Elevator dings. We both step in. 10 seconds of pure, awkward silence while going up. At her floor, she gets out, turns around, and very quietly says, "Nice shirt, by the way." Then the doors close. I rode the rest of the way to my floor with my forehead against the wall. Now I'm seriously considering moving to another country, or at least never taking out the trash before 3 a.m. again. No biggie, I can just never leave my apartment ever again.
I think he won't be seeing his neighbor for a long time.
And the next story is also about neighbors, a situation that anyone could realistically end up in. It goes like this. Highly embarrassing moment with my neighbor this morning. Was walking to my car to head out for work when I glanced up at my neighbor's window. She was waving at me, which is odd because she typically doesn't acknowledge me in the slightest. I waved back, but she kept waving, quite enthusiastically too. I was weirded out for sure now, but I kept waving back. Maybe she was in a really good mood. Then as I rounded my car to the driver's side door, I got a closer look. She wasn't waving at me. She was just cleaning her windows. No biggie, I can just never leave my house again. And the next story shows us how small, seemingly insignificant things can have a huge impact on our lives. It goes like this. How a paperclip saved a $750 million plane. It's easy to forget how intense experimental flying was in the 1960s. The US was trying to understand what happened to big aircraft at the edge of Mach 3, 3 times the speed of sound, testing new materials that glowed from heat and shapes that seemed too sharp to be real. Sitting right in the middle of that race was the XB-70 Valkyrie, a 6X engine research bomber that climbed like a rocket and flew faster than anything of its size had ever done. On April 30th, 1966, one of those test flights turned into a problem no engineer had imagined. Test pilot Al White and U.S. Air Force Colonel Joe Cotton took off from Edwards Air Force Base on a mission meant to push the Valkyrie to Mach 3 for half an hour. But just after lifting off, they noticed the landing gear wasn't behaving normally. A short circuit froze the nose gear halfway into the compartment, and because the gear was jammed against the door, the tires were shredded. When the pilots tried lowering the gear again, the hydraulic system wouldn't respond. Even the backup electrical system, meant to save the day, was dead. That's not a small issue. A small general aviation plane, such as a Cessna, might survive a landing without nose gear, though it would still be risky. The Valkyrie couldn't. Its shape, its height above the ground, the structure of its underside, everything pointed toward a breakup on landing. So the crew tried what pilots sometimes attempt with stubborn landing gear, making a couple of hard touch-and-goes maneuvers, briefly landing and lifting again to try to free the gear. Nothing worked. They stayed airborne for over 2 hours, running out of ideas and slowly facing the possibility that they might have to eject, sacrificing the aircraft and possibly not surviving themselves. Fortunately, the aircraft still had plenty of fuel, so they kept circling. Down on the ground, engineers dug through wiring diagrams and sensor data. After nearly 2 hours, they found the issue: a failed circuit breaker that had killed the electrical backup for the landing gear. The only way to recover it was to short the terminals manually. That's a simple instruction if you're standing in a hangar with a toolbox. But inside a sealed test bomber at altitude, White and Cotton had nothing except their flight gear and a briefcase. The landing was still difficult. When the Valkyrie touched down at almost 173 knots, roughly 320 kilometers per hour, 3 of the 4 main landing gear brakes were still under full hydraulic pressure, so the wheels locked instantly. Tires burst, fire flashed along the underside of the aircraft, and the drag chutes snapped open. Fire crews raced in, expecting the worst, but the aircraft rolled to a stop, intact. It even flew again 2 weeks later. That same XB-70 would be lost 6 weeks later in a mid-air collision during a photo flight, ending its brief career. But the story of that April day stayed behind as a moment when a supersonic aircraft, built from exotic metals and flown by some of the best pilots alive, was saved in mid-air by a bit of quick thinking and an ordinary paperclip pulled out of a briefcase. I like the story about the fighter jet. If you did too, subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. And the next story may seem very tragic. It goes like this.
I accidentally ruined 6 people's lives in 3 days. I know it already sounds like clickbait, but I'm genuinely serious. I, 19, am adopted by 2 wonderful people who I love. They were very open with the fact I was not their biological child and respected me trying to find my real parents. A week ago, I decided to try and find my family. Not to try and weasel into their lives, but because I was just curious. I'm not going into full detail, but I found my sister. I texted her on Instagram and told her who I was and asked how our parents were doing. She texted back a day later, talking about how she never knew I existed and asking me all sorts of questions. I answered, and we talked through the whole night. I decided to do some more digging to see if anyone else was related to me, and we got separated. I found a man who was also my brother. I talked to him too and introduced him to my newfound sister. Imagine how surprised I felt when they were married, and I was their half-sibling. I went with them to my sister's house, and her parents, and my mom, my sister asked her parents knew about this. Our mom started bawling her eyes out and confessed that she slept with my brother's dad, making me both of their half-siblings, but they technically aren't related. Apparently, when my siblings were like 10 or 9, she got pregnant. She acted like it was her husband child, but gave me up since I was deaf mixed, unlike her white husband, and her white self to avoid questions, and acted like I didn't survive birth by bribing the doctor who was her brother. Her husband just stared at her, while my sister and brother screamed at her, while I just stood there. Safe to say, the whole family became a war zone. Sorry, guys. Hey, thanks for watching. See you soon.